and get started. And whoever wants to join in can join in. Okay, so a week or two ago, someone had
You're breaking up.
asked the question in regards to, or I'm breaking up. Okay, hold on. Better? Worse? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so someone was complaining about knee pain when in their static beast position. So I just kind of wanted to go over some mobility. Hey, Samantha.
Hi, sorry I'm late. You see me?
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I can see you. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So yeah, so they were talking about experiencing knee pain whenever in static beast. So I wanted to kind of go over a couple of mobility drills and some alignment. Have you in a better position overall when you're in your static? Do you actually have any kind of knee injuries that you're currently dealing with or have dealt with in the past? First and foremost, there's a couple of tools that we can obviously use prior to our practice, that being the foam roller. The foam roller is really good. They often refer to this as the poor man's massage. You can get these, they're very inexpensive, and you basically, I won't go into a full tutorial of like how to foam roll. We can save that for like a time or a separate video, but using a foam roller is really good before beginning your practice. There's also tools such as this, like the mobility stick, where you can use on certain areas that are really restricted. You have your lacrosse ball, which is really great overall for getting into deep connective tissue, primarily the feet, especially because we're always in like toe flexion of the toes, obviously, and we load our feet quite a bit, but our feet don't get a lot of love. Whenever you tell someone to like do a kind of full body stretching or mobilization techniques, they always neglect the feet, and the feet are a very important part of your overall stability and mobility. There's actually connective tissue that runs from the bottom of the feet, the plantar fascia, that goes all the way up through your calves, through your hamstrings, through your lower back, all the way to the top of your head, right? And so a lot of the times when people have issues regarding like tight hamstrings or something like that, simply just rolling out their feet can sometimes help alleviate those problems. So that's also a great technique to use. The final one that I also like to use, they call it gua sha. It's a Chinese technique, and basically gua means, sorry, one second. Yeah, so you can just oil up. You're basically taking like, they have like special gua sha tools that you can utilize, that you can buy on Amazon or whatever, but you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on these tools. You can simply use like a butter knife, obviously not the rigid end, up, and then you can run your run the butter knife at a 45-degree adhesions that are happening in the body, and that's a good indicator of what area you need to work on. So those are just some simple methods that you can utilize to help free up some of that tissue, help to alleviate any pain in the joints that you're feeling. And the second tip, overall, aside from the mobilization tools, is your alignment. So first we'll get into our wrist prep, and then I'll go into the alignment of the static beast to save your knees. So we're gonna start with our wrist preparation. So I want you guys to all interlock your fingers like this, and we're gonna roll them out here. And ideally, I'd like you guys to kind of sit into this position so we get a nice stretch of the heels and the plantar fascia as well, and get a nice stretch of the toes. So sitting back into your bum, back into your heels like this while you mobilize with your wrist here. And obviously, if this is an uncomfortable position and you feel like your knees or your toes are going to blow up, then you can kind of lean forward to kind of reduce some of the pressure that you put on your feet and your toes. But if you can handle this, I encourage you to stay here and just kind of get a nice stretch in. I like to go from side to side, so I get a really nice, good lengthening stretch of my plantar fascia, bottom of the feet. Okay. A lot of intention, awareness. You don't want here. Okay, so rolling up the wrist here. Then from here, we'll go into our wave. So you're going to open up the hands, keeping the fingers still interlocked. Our landmarks, again, are going to be our belly button or the pelvis, and then the center line of our face here. So we start with the right over the left, bent into flexion and extension of the wrist like this. We're going to pull up towards our eye line and then switch the position. Right arm is down, left is above. And then we switch positions. And we just create this wave-like pattern with our wrist. You can also add the elbow in there as well, the shoulder. So get a nice, good stretch here. So we're gonna make them really big to start. Still on the toes if you can. And then we'll reverse the motion. So now we're leading with the left. Nicely done. Good. All right, so now thumbs out, pinkies out. We're gonna shake. So downward shake here. We're going into wrist deviation, so working on the lateral structures of the wrist, going down like this. We're gonna actively do it before we engage in the shake. So actively going into that downward pressure. And then start to add the shake. So just snapping at the wrist here, but keeping the wrist nice and loose. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll take it down to the ground even further. So pressing the palms firmly into the ground here, making sure we're stacking our shoulders directly over the wrist, fingers pointing away from each other. We're gonna lean from side to side, going into our end range here, exploring how each side feels. With that downward pressure, we're starting off at 20 to 30% pressure. And then as we go along, we can kind of ramp that up a little bit as needed. But again, there should be no pain here. We're just kind of prepping the wrist for the load. Good. Now start to create circles with your body. So going forward and back, still applying that downward pressure into the wrist. And if you want, you can ramp it up a little bit more. So going from 20 or 30% to about 40 to 50. As much as you can tolerate here. Good. All right, so now we're going to turn the fingers towards the knees, pressing the palms firmly into the ground. We're sitting our bum back into our heels here as much as your wrist will allow. So once your palms start to kind of lift off the ground, that's your end range. Don't go beyond that. Don't try to force it. Just hold that for a couple seconds and then lean forward to release the tension. And we're just rocking in and out of that position. And for an added bonus, you can press the fingers into the ground when you reach your end range to increase that intensity a little bit. If that's too much, leave the fingers out of it and just keep rocking back and forth. Again, you're going at your own comfort level. You want to play to your edge, but not to the point of pain. Good. All right, let's interlock our fingers one more time. Going into those wrist rolls here. Nicely done. Okay, so we'll go into a review of the activation. So going into our static beast first, and like I mentioned at the top of the class, really focusing on the alignment portion of the beast, which is very important. So where a lot of the pain might be happening when you're in static beast is applying more load into the knee joint or just the quads itself, rather than actually applying your weight evenly into your hands. So a lot of the times when people are in that static beast position, they're sinking their bum back almost into this loaded beast, this half loaded beast position, rather than having the shoulders stacked directly over the wrist and applying more pressure through the arms, right? Rather than in the knees alone. So if I can protract and generate a little bit more, generate basically a protraction of the shoulders a little bit, but not too much where I'm creating a hump in my upper back, but just enough so I can kind of take the pressure off of my knees, that's essentially where I want to be. So I want to make sure that I'm stacked with my shoulders directly over my wrist. That way, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my knee, because otherwise, if I lean too far back, I'm basically resting, and my knee and my quads get overworked and have to take a lot of that load. And once these muscles, the quad muscles, get really tight, they can affect the patella tendon, or like the kneecap, basically, right? So we want to make sure that we avoid that and apply more of our pressure into our shoulders. Okay, so again, from the static beast, the setup here is we want our hands to be underneath the shoulders. We want the knees to be ahead of the hips. So basically from the belly button, drawing a line down to the floor, the knees should line up perfectly. And then we want the toes to be tucked. And then we want to make sure that we're setting our spine into neutral. So we can do that through that cat-camel position. So going into point A and then point B, and then splitting the difference between those 2 points to create that nice natural lumbar curve in our lower back. Then we want to make sure that our shoulders are stable, so we externally rotate the arm out, right? So it sets our shoulder into position, and then we brace our core, and we lift the knees 1 inch off the floor. So we're going to hold here for 15 seconds, okay? And remember, so do your check-in here. So making sure that you're not feeling a lot of stress in the knee. So stack your shoulders directly over the wrist. We're holding here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Nicely done. Good. Again, go into your wrist relief if you need to. Back of the hands come together like this, driving down, and then back up. Cool. So that's our static beast. We're gonna go into the static crab now. So opposite position. Remember, as a review, from a static crab position, we want from a side profile our body to make a capital M. So we want the hips to be nice and low to the ground without actually making contact with the floor. We want to spread the feet out. The feet can be slightly outside of hip width, but we want the feet to be in. So it makes from a side profile, we're making a capital M with our body. Fingers are pointing away from the hips here, and we're pulling the shoulders back, squeezing the shoulder blades together. I'm tucking my chin to my chest, peeling the head back to look forward. I'm going to have a slight anterior pelvic tilt in my hips as I lift my hips up. So that means that my hips are naturally going to tilt forward a little bit. Not an overly expressed pelvic tilt, just enough so you can kind of create that lumbar curve in your spine here. So when we get into this position here, we go into our cues, pull the shoulders back. I tuck my chin, peel the head back, and then I depress the shoulders. So I pull the shoulders down, keeping that retraction in my shoulders here, and lifting the hips 1 or 2 inches off the floor, right? And we're holding here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax, okay? So just remember, keep in mind those cues, right? So those are our activations. So now we're gonna move on to the transition. So we did this last week where we went into the under switches. So when we're under switching from beast to crab, we're doing that contralateral limb lift, okay? So I'm gonna blow kind of past this because you guys should all be familiar with the contralateral limb lift. If not, then raise your hand and we'll break it down a little bit more. But what we're gonna do is from our static beast position, we can either go into a right leg under switch or a left leg under switch. So you guys can see me, I'm gonna do a right leg under switch. So whatever leg I call out, from a contralateral perspective, that's the leg that comes up off the ground. Therefore, I have to lift the opposing limb off the ground as well before I initiate my under switch. Now, when I'm in beast, you want to think of it like this, where if I'm in this position here and I go into a right leg under switch, I have to do the contralateral limb lift. So my left arm is going to come off the ground as well. Consider that a window of opportunity for you to take your right leg and kick through, okay? And then from there, you're rotating into your crab position, okay? Or another way of thinking about it is when you're in your contralateral limb lift, you want your leg to transition in between the 2 points of contact that are on the floor. So in this case, when I go into my contralateral limb lift, doing a right leg under switch, the 2 points of contact now are my right hand and my left foot. Therefore, I want to make sure that my knee or my leg is in between those 2 points of contact when I'm making that transition. This will prevent me from doing what's called an over switch, because an over switch brings me on the outside of those 2 points of contact. Because now I'm going over my body or over my midline. So you can either do it from opening the window or making sure that rotating leg or that transitional leg is going in between the 2 points of contact. So for our right leg under switch, we'll all do this together, setting our static beast, making sure we go into those cues. We're setting a stable position with the shoulders. The knees are ahead of the hips. Shoulders are stacked directly over the wrist. We have a nice natural lumbar curve. We lift the knees off the floor, brace the core. We're gonna go into a right leg under switch into our crab position. So making sure that right leg goes underneath the midline and in between the 2 points of contact, and then we set our crab position. So the same thing applies with that crab position. We want to pull the shoulders back, make sure that the hips are nice and low, and from a side profile, we're making a capital M with our body, okay? Coming back to our beast position, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Left leg under switch. So we set our beast, and we go left leg under switch. So left leg goes underneath the midline, open the window, and we set our crab position here, okay? So now, from our crab, if you guys have to go into your wrist relief, feel free to do so. So now, from our crab position, same thing. We're still utilizing the contralateral limb lift, only remember from last week, we have to engage that stepping on the gas component. So when we're setting our crab, and we want to do, for example, a left leg under switch, the left leg comes off the ground as well as the right arm. If you think of this as a car analogy, you're in your car right now. So I'm just in my car right now, here like this. I turn the car on, I step on the gas, and then I turn the wheel. So the left leg, or the leg that you called out, is still going underneath the midline, but you're taking that free arm, using that as your turning, using that as the hand that you use to turn the wheel, and it sets you back into your beast position. So again, I get in my car, right? This is setting the crab. I start the car, that's my contralateral limb lift. Then I step on the gas, and then I turn the wheel, and I basically bring that call out leg underneath my midline, setting back to my beast position, okay? Makes sense? We'll do the same thing on the other side. So setting your crab. So we get in the car. So we're gonna go right leg under switch. So you start the car, going into your contralateral limb lift. Then you step on the gas, that means go, and then you turn the wheel with your left hand and set your beast position. Okay? So Now what we're gonna do, so you guys can get a better feel of the concept of the under switches and also gaining control. Last week I mentioned the whole concept of making transitions without creating accents. So accents meaning like when you're about to transition from into like an under switch from going from one position to the other, your body, because sometimes you might be weaker on one side, so you'll lose a lot of that stability and your body will create this jolt kind of motion in your body. That's what we call accents. So we want to try and eliminate or gain control of those accents when they happen. So for example, if I'm in crab position and I'm under switching from my beast and I'm going at a slow pace and I lose control and I'm like off balance a little bit, I want to stay there when that happens so my body can get better acquainted with that position, build strength in this position, and then I follow through with that under switch. So what we're going to do, I'm going to set a timer for 90 seconds, and we're just going to play around with the under switches going from crab to beast and beast to crab, okay? But we're going to go as slow as possible. So however slow you can manage without pain. And again, using the concept of controlling the accent. So if you feel that you're losing stability in a certain area in your transition, I want you to hold that for no more than 2 to 3 seconds and then continue with your under switch. Hold the accent if it happens and play around with different directions. So don't just go in one direction, you know, play around, but go as slow as you can to try and control the movement, okay? So I'm gonna set the timer now. And we're just going to play around with the under switches for now. So we all have 90 seconds. You can start in beast or crab, doesn't matter. So ready? 3, 2, 1, and go. So again, if you lose your balance at any point in time, I want you to hold that position, okay, for a little bit, and then continue flowing through the movement. And each time you get into beast or crab, I want you to check in with your body and make sure that you're in proper alignment. So making sure that when you're in crab, you're still pulling the shoulders back, your hips are nice and low, feet can be slightly outside of hip width, totally fine. And then in beast, same idea, making sure that you're corkscrewing the hands so the shoulders are stable, making sure that your shoulders are over your wrist line, and then making sure that your knees are ahead of your hips. And we should all be breathing with this movement here. So don't hold your breath. Good. 30 more seconds. $15 seconds. Keep it up, guys. Almost there. Remember to do your check-ins, making sure that you're in proper alignment the entire time. None of this should be painful. It should be exhausting, but not painful. And time. Take a rest. Go into your wrist relief if you need to. That was beautiful. Perfect. Okay. So now, so that's the concept of going slow and gaining control, right? When we speed through things, we miss a lot of really good stuff that we're not paying close attention to, right? So if you notice that on some transitions, you're always losing stability, or you're always over rotating and knocking yourself off balance, it's always a good idea to go slower. Break down the movement, go slow, and each time that you set yourself into a foundational movement, be that static beast or static crab, making sure that you're bringing mindfulness and paying attention to the alignment, right? This is going to help you to avoid injuries. And then when we start to introduce a faster tempo, which we're about to do, you'll have a lot more control because you've just instinctually built that pattern slowly into your brain, and now it becomes second nature when you're trying to do it a lot faster, right? We always want to go slow first, get down the basics. I know the basics can sometimes be boring, but it's very important because they add so much more element and foundation to your overall advanced practice when we get to that point, right? So now we're going to do the same thing, but now I want you guys to play with speed here. So we went slow. Now I want you to do the same thing, but you're going to go fast. But each time each time that you make the transition, I want there to be a small pause when you get into beast or when you get into crab. So I may be going into a fast under switch, but then I stop very abruptly in beast, and then I continue again. And I don't want you to confuse going fast with, when you're making the transition, slamming your wrist on the ground, because that will jack you up. I promise you. It happens every time. So don't do that. What I want you to do is, I still want you to know when to slow it down to gain that control, to still place your hand down softly. The idea is we want to move like a ninja. We want to move in silence. So even though I'm going fast, I shouldn't make a sound when I'm making my transition, right? And again, when you're going fast with your contralateral, when you're going fast from your crab position especially, it's a very subtle stepping on the gas, right? So I still want to step on the gas, but I may not go into full plantar flexion of the ankle here. I might just lift the heel off slightly and then rotate, but I still want to make sure that I'm lifting the heel, right? I just do overemphasis when we're teaching it, just so you guys get a feel for that motion of stepping on the gas and stepping on the brake, okay? So again, we're gonna set the timer and we're gonna go for 90 seconds, play around with different directions. So don't just go out 360, go 180, and then reverse the movement, play around. All right, so ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Good. Perfect. Good. And always remember your alignment. So still keep that in mind. When you're in crab, pull those shoulders back. And make sure you breathe, breathe. Good. Almost there, 30 seconds. Well, 15 seconds, sorry. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. How you guys doing, guys? How you guys doing? I mean, that was just one move, but it's crazy, right? Give me those thumbs. Give me those thumbs if you're good. Good. I'll give you guys a moment to get some water if you need to. I know that was a lot, but we still got some more to do. But take 2 minutes, grab some water, go into your wrist prep if you need to. I'll explain as you guys do so, unless you guys have to totally leave the room. Okay, no, you guys are all good? Perfect. Okay, so that was the concept of going slow, going fast, but still implementing that sense of control. So we never want to lose that control. So there's a moment when we're going fast, right when we're about to reach the tail end of that final placement, we want to slow it down so we can gain that control. But during the transition, we want to utilize that speed. So the speed really does come from the stepping on the gas and the pivoting of the foot, right? So it's very important. That's why I emphasize the stepping on the gas, right? Because when my heel is up, I have an easier time to move here. I can move a lot more freely as opposed to my heel being down, stepping on the brake and having it drag. It just makes everything clunky and it can compromise your knee integrity as well. So we want to make sure that we're always pivoting on that foot, and because that's where we're going to generate a lot of that speed. So now we're going to do that same concept, but we're now going to add the side kick through element to it. So with the side kick through, as we know, it starts in our static beast, okay? So we go from our static beast position, and whatever leg we call out is the leg that's making the transition or the movement through right? So the language would either be a right leg side kick through or a left leg side kick through, in which case it's a form of an underswitch. So as we're transitioning, it's the same concept that still applies. We want to make sure that we're still in between the 2 points of contact that are on the floor. So if I'm kicking with the right leg to the left, my 2 points of contact will be my left foot and my right hand. So my right leg right now is in between those 2 points. Rather than coming into my crab position though, I'm stopping halfway, extending at the knee, pointing the toe, keeping the hip nice and low, and I'm pulling the arm back with the thumb down and retracted here to open up the fascial line here. Okay, and then to return, I'm gonna step on the gas with my base foot, that being my left foot, and I'm pulling back in to my static beast position. Okay, so similar to the underswitch, except you stop halfway, step on the brake, and kick off to the side. And the kick, we kind of want it to, so if you hold your hand out like this in an L shape like that, that's kind of where you want, that's how you want your kick to look like. So some people will often, so imagine that this is my index finger is my kicking leg. Some people will often kick like this, where the kicking leg comes closer to the base leg. We want it to open out like this. So you see how it creates this like L shape or this 90-degree angle here? That's the idea that we want with our legs. So there's a difference between kicking here, where I'm kicking behind myself, and here, where I'm opening up and it creates that L shape in my leg. So making sure that you're always kicking off to the side and not behind you or ahead of you. So it sometimes helps if you have markers on the side of you that divide your body in half, and your intention is to kick the marker from the side here. Okay, so I'm going to do a call out now so you guys can get a little more familiar with the language, and I'm either going to say right leg side kick through or left leg side kick through. Okay, so in which case we're going to start in static beast. If you guys can, actually no, never mind, you guys are all good, don't worry about it. We're going to do right leg side kick through first. So everybody should be kicking to the left with their right leg. Good. Now return to static beast. Left leg side kick through. Good. Return. Right leg side kick through. Good. And return. Left leg side kick through. Good. And return. And relax. Go into your wrist relief. Now again, with this, we want to make sure, so your foundation is your foundation for a reason. If we have a poor foundation, then everything that comes after that is going to be compromised. So we always want to make sure that when we're starting and when we're ending, we're always in an optimal position. So with the static beast, we still want to make sure that we're maintaining that good alignment. So we should know from our cues that where our shoulders in relation to our wrists are supposed to be, and our knees and our hips. We want to set a good position. Then when we go into our side kick through, we don't change the orientation of our feet. We just basically kick off to the side here. If I'm doing it correctly, my shoulder should still stay stacked directly over my wrist. It shouldn't be, my body shouldn't be way out here and ahead of my wrist line here, okay? Because then this puts a lot more stress on my elbow and my shoulder, which I don't want. I want to be able to sit nice and hot, nice and deep into this position and not have my hips elevated like this or be on the balls of the foot of my base leg here. I want to be able to sit into this position, pulling the arm back like this and really lengthening and stretching out through this position, hovering the leg off the ground slightly. And then when I return, I reset my position if I need to, but I always want to make sure that I'm setting my static beast properly, engaging all those cues from the beginning of the foundation, right? I'm doing the same thing on the other side. So I always make sure that I stay tight and I don't change the orientation of the movement. So again, you have to be careful when you're returning back to your static beast, where you're placing your leg. Sometimes people will kick and then they'll take the kicking leg as they're returning and they'll step it back behind their base leg and then kick to the other side. And what happens is over time, they get used to that pattern and they get further and further away from their wrist line. So you want to make sure that you always step and make sure that the knees are ahead of the hips, okay? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to that slow form, setting a timer for 90 seconds, but this time we're gonna add the under switch and the side kick through. You can do it at any point in time. You just have to remember that in order to do a side kick through, you have to be in static beast first. So if you're already in crab, you'll have to under switch and then kick through, right? So here, if I want to do a side kick through, I'll have to under switch the beast and then go into a side kick through, okay? But what we're doing now is we're slowing everything down again. So we're still going into that transition, going into that under switch, but now you're adding the side kick through. And you're basically transitioning as slowly as possible, but also this is where I usually tell you, stop thinking so much, but here, take this opportunity to really think about the movement, right? Because we're going slow, so we have the time to think a little bit. You want to think about what your body is doing in that transition. When you stop in your end range, what is your body doing? Are you doing it correctly? Basically, it's what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing? And how are you bridging the gap between those two, right? So when I'm in this position and I'm going slow, I'm taking an opportunity to check in with my body to make sure I'm in proper alignment here. And then as I'm coming back, making sure I'm in proper alignment in that foundation with the beast. Then I go again, making sure I'm in proper alignment, paying attention to the sensations that I'm feeling as I'm doing that, okay? So very key, important components to that, okay? So we're gonna set the timer again, 90 seconds. We're gonna throw in the under switch and the side kick through and make sure that you're breathing, all right? So ready, 3, 2, 1, go. Sam, what happened? No, sorry, the other Samantha. She just stopped. The other one, yeah. No, you're good, you're good. There you go. Good. "30 seconds, guys."
I honestly don't know what I'm doing right now.
So we're just doing the mix of the under switch with the side kick through. So you're just making a transition. Like you can go 360, whatever you need, and then at any point you can throw in the side kick through. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Nicely done. All right, wrist prep if you need to, wrist relief. Okay, so now we're gonna throw in the fast technique. So we're gonna do everything fast. So using the under switch and the side kick through. But before we get into that, how was that for slow and fast? Was it good? Was it not so good? Was it like okay or like terrible? Like how'd you feel? So-so? Okay, see a lot of so-sos. Don't worry, you'll get it. The key thing that you have to remember is just making sure, like, what shape are you trying to create in your transitions, right? And then making sure that you're always going underneath the midline when you're transitioning, okay? So this is why the slow technique is so good, because it allows you to really assess what you're feeling and what you're doing, right? If it feels a little off, then usually it is, or it's just a matter of, you know, you tend to overthink things a little bit more. And I know that kind of is contradictive to what I just said in terms of being more analytical when you're in the slow part of the session. But we just want to make sure that we're remembering the foundation in terms of the alignment. The alignment is what is really key, and then making sure that you're just transitioning underneath your midline every time to smooth everything out, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to get into the faster tempo, okay? So we now have a little bit of control. Now we're going to try and use that control with our tempo changes. So we're still adding in the side kick through, but now we're going fast, under switch. You can play around, under switch, right? We're still utilizing that concept of control at like right before the end of the hand placement or the foot placement, so that way you don't mess up your wrist, and also making sure that you're landing as softly as possible. So be quiet when you're moving, okay? Cool? Perfect. All right. So we will set a timer. We will go 90 seconds. Play around with the different tempos, play around with the changes in direction. Do your best. If you have to take a break, I'm not forcing you. I'm not a drill sergeant. So if you got to just be like, yo, I can only go 60 seconds. What more do you want from me? Then just yeah, that's cool. That's good. That's cool. Take a break, take a breather, and then jump back in whenever you need to, okay? But we're going in 3, 2, 1, go. Good. So remember, gain that control. Beautiful. So remember, we always want to go underneath the midline, so you make sure that there's an opportunity for you to pivot on the ball of that base foot. Keep it going, guys. Keep it going. Coming up on 30 seconds. 30 seconds left. We got 12 seconds left. Now we have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Nicely done. Nicely done. How was that, guys? Thumbs up, thumbs to the side, thumbs down. What are we at? Thumbs to the side, so. That's fine. That's cool. That's cool. As long as there's no thumbs down, I'm good with that. Cool. Okay. So we'll stop it there. And then next week we're gonna start to play around a little bit more with the with this concept, but now adding on to this with more movement, but also adding in the concept of soft and rigid, which is basically an umbrella term or a derivative term of the fast and slow technique, where we're now moving. Soft is in relation to slow, except now we're adding an intention of really being smooth with it, not just in the sense of tempo control or slowing down our movement. We're trying to kind of really just really be like smooth in our transitions. And then with the rigidness, it's a combination of that fast tempo. So we're going fast, but with the control, we're also moving with intention. So we actually have conviction in our movement. So everything is nice and firm and direct, right? So this is going to be a really key component when you start to get into the actual flow aspect of things, because now you have a lot more intentional things to play around with in terms of how your flows look and how you can add your own personal flair to it, basically. Cool? So what we're going to do now, we'll slow things down. We'll get into some form-specific stretches. So I'm going to show you the one that we did last week, which was the wave unload. So from here, we have to get into our loaded beast position. So the loaded beast is basically just an elevated child's pose for anyone who's familiar with yoga. So we want to make sure that we're pushing through our shoulders, making sure that our head doesn't go through our arms here. It stays in between the biceps here. We can either get into the loaded beast from our static beast or just slide right into it. I'll show you it from the static beast. So we'll set our static beast position here. Then from here, you're gonna sit your bum back into your heels like this, making sure the knees stay low to the ground. So if you notice when I did that, I didn't elevate my knees up towards the sky. I simply just push back into my heels, and then I'm gonna slide my hands down to lower my body to the floor, and then drive my knees out slightly. So I engage the side of my booty here, and then I'm pushing through the shoulders. And at the same time, I'm also pushing away from the ground with my feet to create mid-level tension so I can stay stable in that position, okay? So again, we're in that static beast position here like this. I sit my bum back into my heels. I slide my hands out in front of me, making sure that I have enough grip in the ground to kind of keep myself stable. I'm driving the knees out, and my head is in between my arms, not through the arms here. From here, we're gonna float the hips up towards the sky into a pike position, or if you're familiar with yoga, it's a downward facing dog. So I'm nice and high on the balls of the feet. From here, I'm still pushing through my shoulders. I wanna now see if I can load up onto the toes, which will then bring my body forward. I'm gonna keep my chin tucked to the chest, and my hips are gonna start to lower to the ground, not all the way down, but then once I reach my full extension of the hips, I'm gonna untuck my chin, looking up towards the sky. I'm still pushing through the shoulders, the arms are locked out. To return, I'm gonna tuck my chin to my chest. I'm gonna engage my core and push through my shoulders, driving the hips back up towards the sky, and then return back to my loaded position by lowering the hips down to the heels. We're gonna do that again. So I'm gonna float the hips up nice and high, keeping the chin to the chest. Then I'm gonna get up onto the toes, bringing the body forward, dropping the hips into spinal extension, and then untucking the chin, looking up towards the sky. Then I'm gonna tuck the chin here, engage my core, push through my shoulders, driving the hips back up, and then lowering my hips down to my heels. One more time, I'm gonna float the hips up towards the sky, get up nice and high onto the toes, keep the chin tucked, drop the hips, then untuck the chin looking up, then tuck the chin to the chest, engage the core, push through the shoulders, driving the hips back up, and then dropping them down to the heels, and then relax, untuck the toes, drop the knees, and then fall into your loaded beast position here. Lengthen through the arms, get a nice stretch of the lats. Take a nice deep breath in here, inhale, and exhale. With the exhale, try to see if you can sink down further through the floor. Now go ahead and walk your hands over to the left side. Get a nice stretch of that right lat as you inhale, breathing in, expanding the ribs. And exhale. Now walk your way over to the right side. Take a deep breath in. Expand the ribs on the left side. Breathing into that lat. Now return back to your center. Take a final deep breath here. And then slowly make your way back to seated here. We can go into our final wrist relief here. Just driving the hands down and then up. And then again, since we're nice and warm, after this class, what I encourage you guys to do on your own time is if you guys have a foam roller, take this opportunity and just do a full body release here. Again, at the top of the class, I went into some of the mobility tools that I use. I use a foam roller. I use a lacrosse ball to get deeper into some of the tissue. You can also use a massage stick. I don't know if that's the actual term for it, but they kind of look like this here. They got these ridges on it. They come in all different kinds of colors and shapes and all kinds of stuff like that, you know, but yeah, massage stick or something. I'm sure if you type it in Amazon, it'll come up, massage stick, whatever. And then that gua sha technique, you can always use that as well. But yeah, that is it for today's class. I hope it was fun for you guys and not too brutal. Thank you guys for bearing with me, tuning in, and participating on this beautiful, what's the day? Friday? Yeah, Friday. Beautiful Friday day. Sunny. It's not actually sunny, but yeah, I'm sure it's a nice day somewhere, so we'll just go with that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you all. Hold on, let's do a what do you call this? I'm so out of touch with like social media, like what the screen cap, the you know what I'm talking about. Photo. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, hold on. So are we doing like a pose or something? Or
What do you want? It's up to you. What do you want?
yeah, we could do a pose, or like Samantha, she's just like all chilling and stuff. Curly haired Samantha. You know, well, both of them are chilling actually. Yeah, y'all just laying down. Okay, yeah, we can do gang signs. That's cool too. Cool. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Gang signs. I think yeah, okay, we got it. We're good. All right, guys, thank you so much. You guys all did great. Homework is just keep practicing. Ideally, I'd like you guys to practice the slow tempo. Again, just pick a movement. It can be the under switch or the side kick through, and then just drill that for a minute, set a timer, and then go through it slow and with intention. So making sure that you get a sense of what your body is feeling, what you're supposed to be doing, what you're currently doing, and how you bridge the gap to get to where you want to be, basically. Sound good, guys? Awesome. Thank you guys so much, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Let's stop recording.